Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it, presented by Rogue Matter. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture with the rogues who create it every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, on Facebook.com/Rogue Matter Podcasts. Go check out the new Facebook page. Looks awesome, Rogue Matter Podcasts. They finally let me change the name to Rogue Matter Podcast from Rogue Wave. We've got right now 2 podcasts up there. We are officially announcing a 3rd podcast next week. We have a special guest coming on as well, too. And we'll actually have a 4th podcast also later on in March. We're just growing, Hassan, leaps and bounds. I am your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my co-host extraordinaire, the Lord of the Radio, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
It's great. Everything's great, as usual.
Everything is awesome when you're part of a team?
Everything's wonderful. Everything is wonderful when you're part of a team, yes. I am a robot. I am a robot. I
Join
was told to say this.
Go rogue, roguematter.com. So wanted to kick this show off with a little bit of a disclaimer, right? So independently last week, I got hit up by a number of people, friends, fans, and colleagues of the show. And they're like, what, you're not even going to touch the Gina Carano thing? And David Rosenberg, friend and fan of the show,
you're being pressured from outside forces to weigh in.
Well, here's the thing, right? When I got hit up by one person, it's like whatever, and I get hit up by 2 people, it's like whatever. But then when you have actual industry people being like, "What's your take on this?" and part of me, wanted to respond as to why we were not going to actually respond to it. I feel like at this point, all of this kind of divisive, like anytime someone gets fired over the argument of freedom of speech versus private platform versus liberal bias versus, conservative viewpoint, it all just adds to this nonsense that we're kind of, dredged in right now, because we're still, even though coronavirus numbers are going down and hopefully there's a light on the horizon, we're still pretty much glued to our phones now, and we're glued to this kind of divisive talk to the point where I just don't even want to be a part of that anymore, right? So we can easily go back and forth. We can talk about how expressing views, and if you do it on social media, you can end up upsetting a fan base, and a company has every right to act. You can also say that people, by firing her, she's actually proving her own point. These are both talking points for talking heads that will delve into the political realm and will delve into things that, quite honestly, for me, just end up hurting us rather than helping us. And so I would rather just stick to the fun stuff. Yes, we could get lots of ratings. I could sit here and be a talking head, and you can sit there and be a talking head, and we can go into a deep, deep argument, possibly, or maybe we'll agree, maybe we'll disagree, who knows? But at some point, I just feel like it's doing more harm than good. Does that make sense?
Doing more harm than good by weighing in, you mean?
Yes. Now, if they're going to recast her, right? We could talk about the recasting news. We could talk, what are they going to do with the character? We could talk a lot of things that revolve around the show. However, I just don't want to keep contributing to this.
What exactly would be the nature of weighing in according to these other people, not according to you? But I mean, what do they want from you? They just want to know where you stand on it?
Yeah.
Like, why should we have a stance on it one way or the other?
Because we're talking heads. We're talking boxes.
In that context, we could riff off of it, which is fine.
Yeah.
But why would we have a stand or a position? That's
because
the problem with everything. Is everybody's got
right.
Yeah.
That's opinion-based talk radio, which is what we do. Talk podcast. That's exactly what we do. And in the past, to be honest with you, yes, I would have literally said, "Yeah, let's do it." Like that, we got to talk about this, right? It's going to be big. People are going to want to tune in. They want to know about this. They want to know, what side we fall on. And whether or not they even care what side we fall on, they want to either be affirmed by their position or they want to counter our position, right? So, or one of our positions or both of our, you know what I mean? Like there's an incentive to do that. And by doing so, we would make money because we would get more people listening. And by getting more people listening, we would get more ad revenue, which, by the way, doing pretty good on that on our Spreaker account, which we'll talk offline. Big jumps. We went from being a middling podcast to being a middling podcast that makes a couple pennies. It's crazy. But anyway, I digress. We would be.
I want to renegotiate my contract then.
It ain't that much money.
Yeah, he's too late. You already reported it openly.
I think your cut.
You already talked about it openly. Now I think my profile has upped a little because of that. Now I want to renegotiate everything.
I love it.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, it all works.
That's true. That's right.
Shouldn't have said anything about it.
No, but seriously, we would be feeding this talking head tribalism machine that quite frankly I don't even want to get to. You and I were talking off air a couple weeks ago. My friend, a friend of mine, hit me up on Twitter because I was responding to something Eric Larson wrote about a vaccine, right? And he and honestly, my only response to it was just to correct one statement that Eric Larson made, which was, we should get the kids vaccinated. And I said, I'm all for, vaccine talk. Just don't get kids vaccinated because it hasn't been tested on them. Like I read that. I've read that people under 16, like you can't vaccinate people under 16 because they haven't done any tests on it, right? They haven't gotten approval for that part of it. And then another friend of mine jumps on and just like, oh, why would I get something why would I get a fake vaccine from something that, someone introduced a problem and a solution. And I'm like, and I basically wrote back to him. Now, Eric Larson obviously started engaging him, which is the usual back and forth. And I just wrote back. I'm like, I choose not to talk about this on Twitter. I will have a conversation with you if you, in a bar somewhere, and hopefully, and or in private on the phone. But I will not engage. I just won't engage with people on social media about political views at all, because I just find the platform and the conversation utterly pointless and divisive.
Did he accuse you of depriving you of your freedom of speech?
Ironically,
freedom of speech?
Privately, yes. But you know what? It was over an actual conversation, and I said, "Look, this is what I don't want to even do this on social media. The
socialist media.
The most I want to get into any of this stuff on social media is what Pat Shan does when he reviews fast food joints and criticizes Wendy's over McDonald's. But that's my point, though, right? Like, if we all just I'll stick to the fun stuff. I'll stick to, and if you want to have an engaging conversation, well, maybe the next Kickstarter we do will, you can fly in. One of the rewards can be you'll fly in and have a conversation with me.
I understand what you're saying, but then now people know that even if you don't want to talk about it, you'll talk about not wanting to talk about it, and they'll be able to manipulate you into doing that, in which case you'll still keep getting requests, so that with the hopes that you would go on the air and talk about not wanting to talk about whatever they requested. The best thing to do when you want to avoid a subject in total is just to avoid the subject in total, right?
But we were
not even acknowledge the existence of you were getting private questions. I was not aware of these questions.
On social media as well. So on social media is public. I wanted to just wanted to let.
You don't. All right, okay, but whatever the discourse was about it, whatever percentage of discourse you had about it, you just upped it by about 100% by going on record here. And so that's, if you're talking about the game, right, and the social media, the pitfalls of social media, you kind of just put yourself in it, right? Are
you saying that I am playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers?
No, you're playing checkers while everybody else is playing chess. That's what I'm saying.
I disagree completely.
I'm just saying now you didn't quash the situation. You didn't dispel the situation. You've upped it to another level. You've upped it per magnitude.
I've transcended.
So,
I transcended
you
the
call it whatever you did. You did not transcend, because if you were transcendent, you wouldn't have talked about it at all. You'd have been like, I'm above it. I'm not going to have a conversation about it. You can talk about it. You can talk about me talking about it all you want, but I'm not going to talk about it.
Exactly.
And no matter what you do, I'm not going to talk about it. But
That's right.
you did talk about it. So then they still win.
I don't know.
They
That
won.
ad revenue seems to be
They
pouring
did.
in pretty okay. No, just kidding. It's really.
And I want my contract off. You just lost on that too.
You know who won?
See how it works?
You know who won? The internet won last night. The internet. It was Lois. So was it Superman and Lois debuted? And apparently pretty good. It was a pretty good show. I haven't seen it. You haven't seen it, but the reaction across the board, fantastic. This is from Papa Z _95. You know, you gotta give credit where credit's due.
Wow, you gotta hear him weigh in. I'm sure he's got a lot to say about it.
Since The Flash, nostalgic, hopeful, and inspirational. I cried multiple times, not because it's Superman, but because Smallville is Superman, and Superman is Smallville. The core of Superman is his heart. CW got this one right.
Oh,
the
one episode in
K Central. I can't lie. Superman and Lois is some of the best Superman content we've ever gotten. And I don't say that lightly. I went in with low expectations and I was absolutely blown away. So one of the things I noticed
were so low I didn't even know it was premiering. That's how low my expectations were.
One scene in particular got fans of classic Superman really excited. A sequence which saw Superman lift a green PT Cruiser. Looks exactly the same as the car he lifted in the first ever comic appearance in 1938. Ooh. That's one thing I didn't. I couldn't believe that no one has done that yet.
And it has, that's been
but it's
been recreated.
Even the Superman emblem, the emblem is the 1938.
Okay, all right, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
This wasn't the only nod. Superman
he's moved. Yeah. He's literally moved islands. I mean, so we know he could lift a car. So that's interesting. But okay, yeah. I saw people like flipping out about that. Now, I give it to him. I don't really. I don't hold anything against him. I don't really have anything against the show in and of itself. It's the same as the subject we just talked about. If I start weighing in on how I feel about the triviality of some of the stuff or whatever, of the imagery that we're getting, then it's another rabbit hole. So I don't begrudge it. Good for them, and I'm glad it's liked. I'll check it out. That's how I feel about it.
Ironically, seeing the costume and seeing the stills. First of all, is he wearing like a Shazam suit? Because I'm really curious if that's because
I don't know. I haven't seen anything
when
about
he was in the Arrowverse show. Did not seem to be as fit as he is in his own pilot episode. However, I'm wondering, if they beefed up his suit, kind of like what they did with Shazam, or if he's like if he did what every person who first gets on TV ends up seeing, is they see themselves and they're like, oh crap, I need to like lose weight and get fit. Like, what was that? Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Mac, 1 year got purposely fat. Like he literally purposely gained weight off during the season because he wanted to do the opposite of what ends up happening, where people end up getting like better looking and in better shape. But anyway, I referenced that because apparently he looks a lot more strapped in Superman and Lois than I remember seeing him in the Arrowverse. So, hey, good for him. Good for Superman. Okay. And I got to tell you,
all right,
the positive buzz I'm hearing or reading from Papa G95. I don't know. I kind of want to.
His opinion cannot be, cannot be overstated. That's what
and again, that goes back to
important.
That goes back to the Gina Carano argument. It's like when you see these
you just brought it up again.
No, I know, but the tweet that this guy posted with nice professional photos, and he's got a nice little headshot or a logo for his, it looks like a professional news organization, and that's what these social media sites do. They present false truths. They present things as opposed to, I always go back to the argument, like when they used to interview, like the 5 o'clock news would interview people on the side of the road, and you'd be like, why do I care what that guy thinks? Because it's just interviewing like just somebody on the side of the road. And it's like, it just gives you like the on the street opinion. But when you can doctor what those people look like, and if it was to say like, well, we're going to go to somebody in a TV studio with a background, and you know, and they're going to be wearing suits and ties, and they're going to look professional, all of a sudden it's like, wow, oh, they look credible. I mean, that's what all these, you know, CNNs and Fox News is they do anyway, right? They bring on pundits. You know, these pundits come on and look as good as they possibly can to give off this impression of credibility. So just going back to Superman and Lois, now all of a sudden I'm like, I'm kind of influenced by this false narrative of this guy could be important, or displaying
you don't know
a bunch
it's a
of
false
tweets.
narrative though. You're influenced by the narrative, period. Like by his you don't know if it's a false narrative.
Well, true.
You know, so you're just influenced by the narrative, period. You're
influenced by
his
social media. But apparently it's a good pilot, so maybe I will watch it. You know what? I'm almost done with Ozark.
I do believe we should. Oh my God, you're still
season 3. I made it to season 3, episode 2 now. Ooh, that Wendy. Ooh. I'm almost done. So maybe when I'm done, I will I'll binge watch the first like 3 episodes of Superman and Lois. Right?
Okay, man. All right. That sounds great. I don't know what I'll be doing while you're doing all that, but it sounds like a good idea.
Finally, before we go to break, social media, did you see the 3 Spider-Man titles released last night? 3 different.
I did.
I mean, I know you did because I sent them to you, but what is it? Spider-Man Home Slice, Spider-Man Home Wrecker, and Spider-Man Phone Home. Now, Tom Holland went on Jimmy Fallon last night and said there is no Tobey Maguire cameo. He was very specific. There is no Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire cameo in Spider-Man 3. Yet there are 3 titles, and they all kind of could be, I don't know, there's 3 Spider-Men. Interesting. Someone on Twitter said Home Slice is Tobey Maguire because he delivered pizzas. Home Wrecker is Andrew Garfield because, well, I guess he got the father killed.
Because he killed Gwen Stacy. He killed the father and the daughter. Yeah.
And Phone Home would be Tom Holland as Home seems to be, you know. I don't know what the Phone Home would be actually exactly. Was that a reference to Homecoming or Far From Home? Or just because it has home in the title? They all have home in the title, though.
I'm wondering if I'll lose my job by reiterating how little I care about this crap.
No, you lost your job when you said you're going to renegotiate your contract. That's the moment you lost your job.
You can't fire me because
we're going to get off the air. We're going to get off the air. You're going to take your headphones off. There's going to be like 2 men in black behind you. Be like,
yeah,
and you'll be like, this isn't even a real radio studio. I'm in my house. How did you get in here? And they're just going to be like, well, I mean,
be way more about getting than just getting fired. It'd be way more concerned than that. Trust me. I don't know, man. Who cares? I mean, it's not who cares. It's just like, talk to me about what the story is going to be about, and stop telling me about who's going to be in it and what you're going to call it. You know, I'm sure it'll be good because everything's good because everybody does a good job. Even Wandavision is interestingly fascinating and pretty freaking decent, right? So, okay, I'm in, fine, but I'm not playing this stupid. I'm not jumping through hoops for these people. I'm not running in circles and running at walls because they keep putting out, you know, test feelers and stuff like that to keep everyone engaged and keep Spider-Man trending. No, not doing it.
I don't know.
I will have more than an opinion when we actually get to see the film. I will be over opinionated when we see the film, but I have no opinion of it right now.
I was doing some deep dive Twitter research because I guess Tobey Maguire was trending, and people were saying that he turned back on his Twitter account somehow. But I could not verify that, so I'm going to leave it as. I'm going to leave it at that. We got a great show. We got WandaVision
Do we?
talk coming up next. We're also going to welcome award-winning director turned Kickstarter creator Alyson Shelton on. She's going to talk about her new comic book Reburn. That's coming up a little bit later on in the show. But when we come back, WandaVision has now rounded into the sitcom era of the 2000s, and a major moment was revealed. We will get our reaction about the catchiest villain theme song of all time when we come back.
Welcome to Button Stash, the show about the best mustaches in gaming.
Casey, it's Button Smash. It's the new gaming podcast from the Rogue Matter Network. I don't know where you got mustaches from.
Well, I'm not shaving. But we will talk about gaming news, reviews, inside scoops, and retrospectives.
Join us live on twitch.tv/WeAreRogueMatter on Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, or download our episodes wherever you listen to your podcast.
But please, Casey, shave.
Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. Speaking of disruptors, the two of us, well, actually, I shouldn't say the two of us. I joined you and Steve Hovecki, and the other, who's the other guy's name? I don't know.
And Lathan Conger, the third.
Conger. Okay, great. For the Cinementals podcast, that is up right now, cinementalpod.com. We go through my favorite movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, which was Charlie Wilson's War, and my guilty pleasure, which was House, which we didn't get to actually review on this show. Yeah. And I was
you just watched House, and also I think you've earned the ire of Steve Hovecki, because now being a completionist, he's, I believe, as of last week, he's cycled through the other two versions of House. There's three. There's four of them. There's three more, right? There's three more sequels. Yeah. He got as of last week, he got through the first two sequels, and he's unhappy. He's unhappy about it because they're not great. Yeah, they're not wonderful.
Yeah, no, they're pretty terrible. So, I'm not gonna lie, they are pretty bad. But
so you've earned a little discomfort or dismay from Steve.
That's his fault.
Good for you.
That's his fault.
That's not. No. I don't think he would be there if it weren't for you.
Cinementalpod.com. Check out the episode. Charlie Wilson's War is secretly one of the greatest films of all time. Under the radar, I would say. Under the radar, greatest films of all time. Some great performances.
I don't know how it's under the radar when it has Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts, and it's written by Aaron Sorkin. I mean, how can that be under the radar? I don't understand.
It never gets talked about.
Of it.
It never gets brought up.
Maybe it's so good. Nobody talks about The Social Network anymore. I mean, nobody talks about movies anymore. Like
I feel like The Social Network
talk about movie and
more. They reference that more and more, especially with Zuckerberg in the news.
Yeah, but kids are not going to be watching movies about the Mujahideen. That's not
the kids.
That's not going to get a lot of.
The kids are watching WandaVision.
Some kid posted on Facebook the other day a picture of people waiting in line to see Star Wars 1977, and it said the caption above it said what your grandparents were doing to go see Star Wars, and I'm like, it's not true.
If you think about it, right?
Years ago,
you were a kid then, right? You were a kid.
Yeah,
then.
Yeah. So, and I was in line.
Waited in line. However, if your parents waited in line, they are at this age would be technically grandparents at this age.
But it didn't say what your parents and grandparents were doing. It just specified your grandparents. Okay, so it was dead wrong. Because millennials don't do math. They just don't. They don't. They're not into math. Math is hard.
Man,
the millennials
they don't get it. It doesn't happen right away. So
yeah, skip it.
They got
it happened. It happened 10 years ago. It's ancient. It's ancient. I didn't. You bing.
All right.
You bing. You bing.
WandaVision dropped the bomb. All right. Last episode.
Wasn't really a bomb, though. You know why it wasn't a bomb,
why?
Mr. Dolce? Because everybody has been talking about it. Agatha Harkness since day one.
Yes.
It would have been a bomb if nobody was freaking talking about it.
Well,
but unfortunately, I mean, the song was kind of a bomb. Okay, well, now we got a song. So that's amazing. Great.
Right. Sung by Catherine Hahn, by the way.
Well,
So
what
she
would you
performed
expect?
it. I'm just saying.
Well,
you know,
all right.
she performed it. So that's another tip of the hat to her. She was in a movie called Sell Hard. Have you ever seen Sell Hard?
No, I have not.
It is done
Jake
by the
Wood
production
movie?
company, the Gary Sanchez production company. So it's the same ones that do like Old School and Anchorman. It's I should have done that actually as my under the radar one instead of House, but I haven't seen it in a while. But she is amazing.
It's guilty
in that.
pleasure. It's not under the radar. Sorry, it's
Sorry,
guilty
right.
pleasure. You,
I should
the
have
under
done
the
that. I
radar
should
is
have
your
done Sell Hard as
distinction.
my all-time great. You guys could have all looked at me and been like, "What?"
You could do that. People have done it.
Catherine Hahn. So I've liked her since that movie. I think that movie came out in 2010. I want to say maybe 2009. It really just really, it's a really stupid, funny movie. So
Okay.
I liked her in that HBO series as well too. That was on. I think it was only on for 6 episodes though, and the name is
So
escaping.
good. You forgot the name.
Well, it was enjoyable.
It was so good. Or so
Mrs.
good. I
Fletcher.
don't remember
Mrs.
what I was
Fletcher.
watching.
She was
Mrs. Fletcher. I never even heard of that. Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
I'm just getting over being a grandparent for having seen Star Wars in 1977. So I mean, I was stuck on that. So
I mean, you could be a grandparent.
Oh.
You could be. I mean,
it could be. Yeah,
you know,
heck yeah.
If you
Heck
made a
yeah.
couple mistakes in high school,
Heck yeah, the
you'd be a
kids get
grandparent.
around.
And
The
if
kids get
it
around,
passed
that's all I'm
on to
saying.
who,
The kids get around is all I'm saying. That's all I can say. I can't really say anything, but that's all I can say is the kids get around.
If that lineage of bad decision making passed on to said child,
I'm telling you, the only thing we could officially go on record and say is the kids get around. That's all. That's
right.
all we can say.
All right.
Right? Right?
But yeah, no, she's fantastic though, and she's been fantastic in a number of different roles. And Sell Hard, trust me, is not the one that anyone is going to tag except myself. I feel like, because talk about a movie that went under the radar, that went almost like straight to.
Yeah, I would consider that under the radar more than Charlie Wilson's War, which
Yes.
I have heard of, and which has many A-listers in it.
If she was in that, she would have been fantastic. But isn't it an amazing thing though? Right at the end of the day,
conversations. I don't know why. I don't
no.
understand.
But
All right, go ahead.
This is the most amazing part about it, though, right? Is that
Pretend I'm listening to you.
You know, she's been a great character actor in a number of different.
For a long time.
I mean, her career has spanned numerous film and TV appearances. But it takes a Marvel show, a Marvel movie. I'm going to call it a movie because it's part of the Marvel cinematic universe, where people are like, "Wow, who's this actress? I've never seen her before. I never realized how good she was."
I haven't seen that much though. I mean, have you been seeing them? People are like, "Who's this?" Because I've pretty much everyone been like, "Oh, and Catherine Hahn's in it." So that's
Vulture
cool.
just did Vulture just did an article a couple weeks ago.
Dear.
Catherine Hahn has always been a secret weapon. Another website.
Well, that doesn't mean that
we're finally applauding Catherine Hahn.
That's not a discovery. That's just the acknowledgement, right? That's not
Junkie in WandaVision. Catherine Hahn is finally having her moment.
Finally, that's still an acknowledgement. That's not a discovery. You see the term?
Oh, okay, all right. I'm fine with that. Yeah, okay.
I'm going with that. All right, then.
Yeah,
don't let that happen again.
I'm cool with that delineation. That people
That's fun.
I'm glad the accolades that she.
There you go. That I agree with. I knew who she was. I haven't, now I will say I didn't have a strong opinion about her, good or bad. It's like, oh, it's Catherine Hahn, But and I will say to your point, the show is putting her in a different light.
Yes.
She is now more noticeable.
Yes.
Because of who she plays. Like, all right.
Isn't that just like the brilliance of the casting of her to begin with, right? Like you said it before, that it wasn't a bombshell, because we all kind of knew, or we all kind of suspected, or we all at least talked about how we thought, and spoilers, Agnes was really Agatha Harkness, who's a key figure in the comics. So you kind of knew it was coming. However, casting Catherine Hahn, who generally is just a solid piece of any casting compilation that you bring together, a solid cog in the wheel of anything she's in, to have her be pulled out as not just Agatha Harkness, because Agatha Harkness can be seen as both villain and as supporting the hero in the comics, but to I mean just outwardly blatantly be like, "Mwahaha, she is the villain," like there is and there's still 2 chapters left to go, and we might see there's someone pulling her strings as well and whatever, but
I'm sure there's more to it. I'm looking forward to it being
right,
thoroughly explained or fleshed out in the next 2 episodes.
But the way they dropped it, especially with the song at the end, which I thought was just extremely, well timed, well done, to the point where you're sitting there going, like, all of a sudden you're like, wow, yeah, Catherine Hahn is like, she's a queen. Like, look at her, Yas queen. She's up there. She's doing it. She's like. And because you cast her to begin with, I would never have really suspected the delivery in the way the moment was delivered. And so that's a testament to, again, Marvel casting, which seems to always get it right, which is great. What's a Marvel casting that didn't get it right? What would you think? Can you anything off the top of your head? I was just wondering. I'm curious if there's anybody you can think of where it was like, wow, not good.
I would have said the first Rhodey. I forgot his name.
In what movie?
Iron Man.
Oh, Terrence Howard.
I would say that, but I liked Terrence Howard in the role.
I thought he was really good.
Yeah. And it's ironic because I think highly of Don Cheadle, but I think he kind of disappears in the scenery, as they don't really give him. There's not a lot of ways for him to stand out. As War Machine, supposedly he's gonna get his own show.
Yep.
And there's rumors that he is cameoing in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I mean, there's gonna be more of him. But
Don Cheadle, the actor, phenomenal. Don Cheadle.
His roadie is just kind of just kind of sinks into the scenery.
No, Terrence Howard to me was much more in line, and that's not to say that Don Cheadle's a bad casting, because it was a recast. But
I don't know, someone bad.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Like I again, I didn't just thought off the top of my head. Whereas,
you know what? I honestly think, what's his name? Alan Taylor. What's his name?
Oh, Aaron Taylor Johnson as Quicksilver.
Yeah, I didn't like his Quicksilver.
Yeah,
didn't like it at all. I thought it was really generic. I thought the costume they had him in was just, I mean, it was whatever that spandex like body armor they had him in. He didn't get a lot to do next to Wanda,
right?
Who shined, but I mean, it was designed so she could shine out more than he did. And it's not Joss Whedon's fault because he got there second, but it pales in comparison to the X-Men version of Quicksilver, and his depiction and the moments that they gave him to really, chew scenery on that, on him being faster than sound, basically. Yeah. So, and I mean, which again, Marvel finds a way to capitalize on by recasting him. But I thought that was probably, that if any version of miscasting, I don't know if he was miscast. I just think he didn't do anything for me. And I like the actor. I have no issues with the actor. There was a little too much of him in the Godzilla movie.
I like Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, but I don't love him as Bruce Banner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you.
I could say something to that extent.
I don't really have a problem with that, though.
I don't either, but if I'm thinking, I'm like, But again, he was a recast also. Same scenario, right? Same scenario as Don Cheadle.
Yes.
And Mark Ruffalo, the actor, phenomenal. So, it's not as if he gives bad performances.
I really liked him in Ragnarok. I mean, it depends on the situation and the circumstances you put the characters in. Yeah, because they do come out strong. I mean, of course, Don Cheadle is an amazing actor. They just haven't given him anything to do really to shine as War Machine. The same with Aaron Taylor. What's his face? He could have. I mean, if they actually decided to to do something with his character other than just to kill him off for the shock value.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they could have, he probably could have shined just as bright as the other Quicksilver.
It's tough. It's
So-
tough though, like you said, the other Quicksilver came first, so it's a little. No,
It would have been. I mean, yeah, it did.
Yeah, he did.
It
Yeah,
did.
he did. Yep.
It did.
So at that point, you're Joss Whedon. Either A,
And I mean,
you've already written
and
the
that-
script,
And
right?
that
You've already-
sequence is just completely like, this the save time in a bottle sequence. It's everything slow
Right.
down. You're not gonna beat that,
No.
know. And they tried to beat their own moment in the next movie with him saving everybody in the X Mansion, and that
and they
didn't
kind of
really.
did. You know why? They
It
made the
was-
rest of the movie so poor that
It was
is the
really
best
a
part.
beautiful scene, but it wasn't as spectacular as the save time in a bottle thing,
Yeah.
and it was also them riffing on themselves.
Yeah.
And you could tell. Now it doesn't matter. It's good not to nitpick too, that's what the whole entire industry is like, just ripping itself off.
Yeah.
That's like that's a whole genre in all art, is a homage or ripping itself off or cheating off itself or stealing from someone else. So it's fine. But, then you have Aaron Taylor Johnson or whatever running around with a machine gun, and you're like, all right,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
So, and then he gets shot, and then they're like, oh, well, all right. I guess that's why he's not special, because he ain't going to be in any more of these movies.
So real quick before we go to break,
Nah, I don't want to
do
go to break.
you suspect there is someone else pulling the strings, or is this Agatha Harkness? And if so, why is she doing it?
You don't listen to me at all, do you, when I
No, I
talk,
do.
right?
I just
Dude,
I
Yeah.
just ignore you.
I'm not going to answer that question then. Because I had an entire segment last week about how
Oh, I
I
know.
just don't really care.
I know.
So you can ask me all you want.
I know.
I'm good. You know what I'm going to say? You know how I'm going to answer that question?
Gina Carano. Tobey Maguire. Superman and Lois. Now that would be. Now apparently Jared Leto is going to make an appearance in episode 8 of WandaVision. No, that's not true at all. Actually, I literally created that out of thin air. But I wonder if things will just like go into some rumor website and be like, "Wow."
I heard it was going to be Luke Skywalker. I thought it was just, Luke's just going to. He's
Don't give
Disney
it
Plus
away.
now. He's
Oh,
going to
now
show
I'm
up
gonna see
everywhere.
it coming. Oh, man.
All
right, what do you guys think?
Those are the dangers of speculation theory.
You think Hassan should
That's
just play
what
along
happens.
and give his predictions? Do you think what is a Marvel casting that did not go well? And comment in the Facebook feed, and we'll shoot you. We'll shoot back
Yeah, I'm
at
sure
you.
everybody
as well.
will be over opinionated about it.
I think it's tough. I think it's tough to find. So we'll see what they say. We'll comment on the Facebook feed. If you are listening to this in podcast
It
form,
probably will be tough to find things that everybody agrees on. Everyone's going to have a different opinion on everything. That's what's going to happen.
that'll
Word, yo.
rake in,
Word,
that'll
yo.
rake in the bucks, baby. Rake in the bucks. When
Be
we come back,
negotiating. My lawyer's calling.
Hassan's
on that
Road
phone.
Rage, Rogue Rage, coming up next. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, talking comics, movies, TV, and pop culture with the rogues who create it. We have a great guest coming up in the next segment, but first, all the rage in the pop culture world brought to you by Hassan. This is Hassan's corner to do whatever and bring you whatever information he would like you to know and for me to talk on top of. Let her rip, my man.
I'd like everybody to know that George Martin is basically not paying attention to what he's supposed to be doing as far as everybody out there is concerned. And he's producing a television show adapting a Roger Zelazny novel for HBO. Deadline is reporting that author George Martin is executive producing a television adaptation of Roger Zelazny's novel for HBO. Kalinda Vasquez, whose previous credits include producing Fear the Walking Dead, as well as writing for Star Trek Discovery, will bring the adaptation to the network. So they haven't even pitched it yet. They're just that's basically what they're doing. Is they're trying to adapt a novel. Published in 1979, the novel is about...
Is it Road Marks?
It's Road Marks from Roger Zelazny. 1979, the novel is about a highway that can be used to time travel. It links all timelines together, places, things, persons, and you can travel anywhere you want if you're lucky enough to discover the highway in the first place. This information is pissing off Martin fans who want him to concentrate on the Wings of Winter.
Is it pissing you off? Is it pissing you off?
Not really. I'm not pissed about it. But I can understand it because it has been, and the article points this out, it has been 10 years since A Dance with Dragons came out. It's been 10 years. We've had the entire run of Game of Thrones in between him writing 2 books, right?
Yeah.
Or, one book to the next. Has it taken you 10 years to do anything that you're still getting paid on? that you're still collecting revenue from? Has it taken you 10 years to... I mean, if it took you 10 years to do anything, would anybody keep hiring?
So put it this way, it has taken me 10 years to do stuff that it took me 6 years between the first issue of Time Trader and the next issue of Time Trader. So there was like the thing. The difference being is that
you had a relaunch though.
No one cared.
Maybe people did care, but the people who did care were small, just as small as we are. So it was a vocal minority. Didn't care that those people didn't care.
Very loud 3 people who were like, "Hey."
Yeah, it wasn't that people didn't care. It's just the people who did care. You didn't care about them. That's what that was.
Well, hey, that's what George R.R. Martin's doing too, right?
I'm sure he's doing that, right? He's got the dump truck full of money, as he says. He doesn't really care about what we care about.
My theory on this, though, is that he has written all the Game of Thrones books, and it will be released upon his death. Because I don't think he wants to. I don't think he wants to endure the kind of scrutiny that the showrunners endured when Game of Thrones, the series finale, came out. Even though they helped him out and they did a job, they did him a favor. They lowered the bar.
I just think he's slow at writing. That's all I think. I know there's all these conspiracy theories about who shot John.
All right, right? So give me a timeline. Give me a timeline of the books real quick. When did the first one come out?
1991, I think.
Okay. And then how soon after the first one did the second one come out?
About 2-3 years. It was rather quicker.
Yeah.
Rather much quicker.
Right. And then so when the show first debuted, was it 2012, 2011, something like that? I can't remember.
2012, exactly. I think 2010 or 2012, something like that.
Somewhere in that range.
Oh my God, we don't have any numbers that's to go into this. I do know that the first time that he was experiencing trouble was between A Storm of Swords, which was the third book, and The Feast for Crows, which he promised because he had written a significant amount of stuff that he took out of A Feast for Crows. No, excuse me, that's wrong. Feast for Crows into A Dance with Dragons. He had written a significant amount. He was going to take the chunk that he had written that was not good enough to fit in A Feast for Crows. He was going to put it into A Dance with Dragons. And he figured that was a chunk that was maybe 100 pages or something like that, which put him miles ahead of where he figured he would be. So then he promised the novel in about a year and a half, and it took him 6 years to do it. So he got wrecked for it, right? He got roasted by the fans. So it took him
6 years. So that was the longest stretch in between. So
that was the longest stretch between up to then.
Yeah,
that was his long stretch between novels, and now he's outdone himself he's about to double it, because if he takes another 2 years, it's 12 years, so he's doubled it.
So the Killers,
basically,
remember the band The Killers?
Yes,
yeah,
I love the Killers.
Brandon Flowers is the vocalist, right? And They released their first record. I think it was in 2004 or 2005, one of those years. And then the next record came out 2 years later, 2007. So I think it was like 2005, 2007. And he came out in that second that second record being like, we want to be as good as Springsteen. We want to be as, as we want to be this huge band, blah, blah, blah.
He overstated.
And then there was
That's
like
the
a
problem.
5-year gap between that third record and that second record. And then eventually like a 10-year gap between anything, right? And he kind of said it. He says, when you have everything you've ever wanted in life, it's really hard to be inspired to go and, when you're doing something to make it, to be successful, and you reach that success, the motivation to just continue that is just very difficult. So
I don't have an issue with that because I don't have anything that I've ever wanted, and I still find it hard to be motivated. So I mean, if I actually had everything, I'd be catatonic, most likely. Okay, so
you're Icarus.
I'm not going to
rolling the block, rolling the rock up the hill. No matter. No, not Icarus. Who's the one?
Sisyphus. Yeah, it's Sisyphus.
Yeah.
With the rock.
That, yeah.
Not Icarus. Icarus was overmotivated.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All right. What else? What else we got? What else? Rogue Rage.
DC's overshipped Zack Snyder tie-in. Might have one of the covers of his tie-ins to the Snyder Cut might have a spoiler on it. There's been some debate as to whether DC Comics Justice League number 59 Snyder Cut variant covers announced last week has a spoiler revealed on the cover for a character that may show up in the movie.
That's not a good written article.
Oh, they're all poorly written.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell when I'm reading them because I'm just basically trying to perform, But they're very poorly written.
Yeah, not easy.
You made me lose my place. Anyway,
so it'll have a.
They suspect that the cover, one of the covers of this, will spoil HBO Max's Justice League edition, known as the Snyder Cut. Justice League number 59 sees writer Brian Bendis and artist David Marquez take over the comic book title on the 16th of March 2021. And from one of the specially commissioned Snyder Cut covers from Liam Sharp and Jim Lee and Lee Bermeo may potentially feature a superhero character that was originally cut from the Joss Whedon. Oh my God!
Oh no, the Joss Snyder. That's actually a very accurate representation.
It's just the Joss Snyder. Yeah, are we gonna call it that? The Joss Snyder cut, the Joss Whedon cut. But is believed to have been reinstated in the Snyder Cut. We may be showing that on screen right now if you don't want to know who that character is. I'm not going to mention it. But if you don't want to know who the character is, don't look at the screen.
Isn't that they've been talking about this guy for like months and months and months. Like I think even like
whoever the character may be, whoever. Yeah.
Yeah,
they've been talking about that's like Agatha Harkness and this particular character have been debated over and over again.
The big takeaway I got from that article that you just read is that I need to go pick up Justice League now because Brian Bendis and David Marquez, they are an unbelievable duo. David Marquez, he's one of my favorite artists. His work on Miles Morales Spider-Man, unbelievable. So, and I haven't read a Bendis book in years.
Yeah.
Just because I'm not a DC guy per se. So yeah, I'm down. I'm down to check that out.
Since Miles Morales, Spider-Man. That's the last Bendis book the article is poorly written, but I also read it badly. So it's two-pronged.
That's double-edged sword right there.
It's two-pronged. But I mean, as you're saying, it's not really that much of. I mean, and the other thing is, it's making a big deal about nothing because
comes out 2 days before the movie's dropping.
I just don't think. I mean, I honestly think everybody's overcooking the Snyder Cut. I don't think it could be as much as everybody keeps saying it's gonna be.
Yeah, no.
I know you. I understand your position on it. You made it abundantly clear last week that you don't even care. as
Well,
to
the big
whether
ruckus now
whatever's
too
going
is
on.
there was like a photo of Joker as Jesus, and that was like, and then you have the Snyder defenders who are like, he has so many layered meanings in all of his movies. People just and it's
The
like,
only thing
yeah,
I
I
know
get
is
him.
the Snyder cut is about to drop the day before the premiere of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So that's going to be a crazy week.
Oh, we are gonna be busy.
That's going to be a crazy week.
We'll be
And
reviewing.
considering
Superman
we
and
already
Lois. We'll be
missed the
reviewing Superman and
premiere
Lois
of
that week.
Superman and Lois.
Yeah,
It
we'll be
doesn't-
reviewing that week instead.
No, you won't, because you said you weren't even going to watch it.
I am going to watch it. By then, I'll have watched it. By then, I will have finished Ozark, and I could watch a couple episodes of Superman and Lois.
I mean, what are you? You're talking about Superman. You're not
Yes.
gonna. So you're gonna watch Superman instead of the Snyder cut. Superman and Lois
So-
instead of the Snyder cut. So you're gonna be reviewing Superman and Lois while everybody else is talking about the Snyder cut, leading right into Falcon and Winter Soldier.
I'm gonna.
By the next week, because that's Thursday to Friday, right? So by the next week, both of those will have dropped.
What
So
are the
we will be expected
chances?
to have an opinion of both of those?
What are the chances? Superman and Lois is by far superior to the Snyder cut. I think very good, right?
That's back to speculative fiction, and I don't do that. I don't.
I know.
engage in
I'm doing odds now. We're not doing speculative. We're doing odds.
It's
I'm
still
like,
speculation.
Vegas odds.
That's an odd on what we speculate is going to happen with this story.
yeah, I
Yeah,
guess you're right.
Herb.
I think it's a 2-1. And I think you would.
Why would you do that though? I mean, if you have limited content to talk about, why would you bet against any of it? That's what I don't understand
It
about
doesn't
you.
have to be good for us to talk about it. Because remember, things can be so spectacularly bad that we will
It
talk
doesn't.
about it.
Yeah, it doesn't. That doesn't. I'm not talking about like for us to praise. I'm
Right.
just talking about us talking something that hasn't even happened yet, to the point where it makes you into a hypocrite if you do like it.
No, it does not. As long as you sit there
You
and
have
say,
to. You
I
have
came
to
out.
vehemently state that.
Yeah,
that,
and look,
for no
if
apparent
I watched
reason
the Snyder Cut-
whatsoever, I thought that this was going to be crap, and I wasn't looking forward to it, and now I've completely changed
Yeah.
my mind. Yeah, well, I mean, why would you do that? Why would you put yourself in that position? Just be like, you know what, this is going to come out, and I'm going to see it, and I'm interested to see it. I've got
So-
I'm apprehensive about it. I've got some concerns, perhaps, but I mean, last week you full on were like, I'm not interested.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna watch it,
But I mean,
and we will talk about it. But I'm gonna sit there and either tell you I was wrong, or I'm gonna sit there and tell you I was right, and this was just a dredge of a movie to get through. Which apparently was a hot button for executives at Warner Brothers too. That was the other thing that had kind of leaked, that they had watched the Joss Whedon cut and they're like, this was terrible, but no one wanted to say anything, and blah.
But I
blah.
heard something else. I heard that they watched it and they thought it was great. I've heard
Yeah, I know.
two different stories on that.
I know.
So,
Well, it's
I
revisionist
mean-
history, right? Like, it's always revisionist history. It's always
We're
like
never
whatever the
going to
popular
know
trend
when any
is.
of these. And who cares what a bunch of freaking execs think?
I know.
Really? Who cares? Who
Right now,
the
it's
hell
right now.
cares?
The narrative is Zack Snyder, thumbs up, and he was wronged. Joss Whedon, thumbs down, and he.
Joss
can't-
Whedon's thumbs.
correct.
The thumbs are down on Joss Whedon for things that have nothing to do with Justice League. So,
No, but it's creeped over into the.
I mean,
to
they'll
to
grandfather that in.
but that's my point, though, that it's creeped into the work now, because again, this is an age where we don't separate the artist from the art anymore. Not saying that Justice League was art in any way, shape, or form.
You know why we don't separate the artist from the art? It's because the artist is, it goes out of their way to make themselves more celebratorious than the art that they're doing.
It's very
If
possible.
if I, like back in the day, you didn't know Ridley Scott directed Alien.
Right.
You're just like, wow, I really liked Alien, until Aliens came out, and that was a better movie. And then around that time, you're like, who made this movie? And that's when that started.
Yeah.
But when you were a kid, the art came first. You didn't even know human beings were behind it.
Right.
Okay, so I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand why artists or authors
Yeah.
would work so hard to make themselves more famous than the work that they've done.
Well, again, is it that the artist is doing this, or is that people like us or
Well, they
people in
weigh in
general?
on things like that. I don't know why why do we know that Orson Scott Card has a problem with certain people's sexual orientation? Why
Right.
would you know that? He's the author of Ender's Game.
Yeah.
That's what we should know. you know, but he's gone on record about these things. So now people have to now there's none of that in Ender's Game.
Right.
His political views on anything are not in Ender's Game.
Yep.
I mean, there's a point of view. There's a very rigid point of view about authoritarianism and a lot of other things in Ender's Game, but his personal views on certain matters are not on display.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's his right to do so. Absolutely.
It is the conundrum of the society we are living in right now. Excellent Rogue Rage. I love it. I think it's fantastic. We're going to do it again next week. Coming up next, award-winning director turned comic book creator Alyson Shelton is jumping on to talk about her new comic Reburn, available now on Kickstarter when we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We love talking comics, movies, TV, and pop culture with folks that are in the business doing exactly that, making comics, movies, and TV. And we have an amazing guest right now. We have Alyson Shelton, creator of Reburn. How you doing?
I'm good, Michael and Hassan. How are you guys?
We are as joyful and merry as we usually are. Which is basically me being joyful and him being not as joyful.
But
that's why you're good
on
partners.
a regular basis.
just not on our show.
No. In all other capacities, I'm the happiest person you've ever met.
Oh, well, I tell you what, you are a master of segues, and I'll segue into Alyson, your first Kickstarter for Reburn. First of all, talk to the audience. What is Reburn about? Give the log line, give the pitch, and then I want to know how happy you are that you are funded.
Pitch. Those are the. I'll just talk about it. It's about a woman named May who's a superpowered woman. She's the first person with superpowers to show up in this world, and when she does, at the same time, catastrophic floods happen, and there's struggle and. How are we going to move forward? And she helps create a new place called the Unity, but then eventually becomes a victim of their policies, which is where the book picks up. And she's trying to piece back together her life and deal with the trauma and the reality of having been a soldier and what does that cost her? And also it's, there's action and love and all of those things, but it's really about her personal journey to put it back together.
Fantastic. It is a beautiful book. First of all, that was the first thing that always struck me. How did you end up connecting with Elise McCall, who's the artist on this? And yeah, talk to me about the synergy there and how that came.
It was funny because the producer Jessica Patel and I have been friends for a long time. We had our first jobs in Hollywood together, and we were assistants who sat across from each other, and we have always shared our work with one another. When I first showed her the script, she was working on, she was producing a show based on a comic book. And she was like, oh, we should make this into a comic book. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I don't even know how to do that. That sounds awesome. I love comic books. But then she kept working on it and she had contacts and they were like, well, you just write it. Like, I just needed to write the script and the arc and start approaching artists, which seemed very different to us because in the business it's like you need to contact the agent and all that kind of stuff, but we just created a list of artists that we wanted to approach and we just started emailing them and with our first with our pitch and then if they were interested with our package and Elise, like the first phone call, it just felt like she and I just have a great synergy. We see things really similarly and I was reading Maneaters. That's at the time. That was what I read that she was drawing on. And I think she's incredibly talented. And we had a wonderful time. Like this past year working on this because, it took some time to get it done because of COVID and everything. Yeah. It's been a real life raft during these times, which have not been the greatest of times. So it's been really incredible. And I've said in like some of the materials when she would send me character description or character designs or layouts or thumbnails, it's a very powerful thing to have something that was in my head be brought to life by someone as talented as her.
No, that's the first thing that struck me. And it's funny when we were talking about it at Rogue Matter, we were saying, what was your impression of the book? And the first thing I said to myself was, this looks like an Image Comics book. Like this looks like something I would get at Image Comics. And that's, and then some of the guys were like, what does that mean exactly? And I said, it's professionally done. It's got like a sci-fi quality to it. It reminded me of the book Thumbs, which is another Image book, just in terms of, kind of similar backdrops for the story, but also kind of like the artists were very similar. But everything soup to nuts. I mean, even the lettering is done. Lettering is a big pet peeve of me, of mine when it comes to.
I think it is for a lot of people, Michael. I mean, I've heard that from a lot of people for sure.
You know what? Because I can tell an amateur book, you can have the best artist in the world, and then if you have an amateur letterer on it, it just screams like, oh, this person clearly doesn't know what they're doing, right? This is your first foray into making a comic, and to your credit, it looks as professional as I've seen. And I've seen a lot of stuff on Kickstarter where you're like, wow, I really want to support you, and then you are like, oh man, yeah, well, I'll still support you, but the work is not as good. The work actually backs up wanting to support you. So what was the level of quality control that you did? And what did you experience in the process of making comics that you didn't expect?
I mean, it's a steep learning curve, right? Because it's one thing to read them. Then it's another thing to make one and to learn the language of that. Both Jess and I are very good at asking people we know who know more than us to let us know what they think.
Yep.
And to take that to heart, but to also know what we think, because we've been at this a long time. And it was funny because, I mean, even Elise, like early on, because she went to art school, she was like, oh man, I got to get a good letterer. I'm not doing it. Like I can't do it. And so,
was that a surprise for you where you were like, what do you mean you don't do it?
No, because I read enough comics, and my husband reads enough comics, and we talk about all this stuff. We knew we would need to get a letterer. And Elise did and so did Ruth, did the Helioscope mentorship. So I actually just wrote Steve Liebert and was like, hey, Steve, I got Elise and
You're
Ruth
not
on
busy.
this book. Yeah. And he wrote me back. You know what I mean? Like, I have to say people in comics have been very supportive and just kind.
Yeah.
And it's kind of refreshing and lovely. And he recommended Jomette, and because I wrote him and said, we'd really love to have a woman. If possible. And if you know anyone, because it's not like, I mean, and it's funny because I had actually looked on Twitter and I'd searched for letters and she had popped up. Okay. So then he also recommended her. So it was she's excellent, and does many of her own Kickstarters and is building her own label. And so it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I noticed that too. I mean, you point out the all-female staff behind everything. So you have yourself as the writer-creator, Elise is the artist, Jessica Patel, you mentioned, is one of the editors and the producer, Jeanette Gill, and Ruth Alano, and Mariah Atlas. So Ruth and Mariah are editors, and then Ruth did additional coloring as well as some other stuff. How important was it to get an all-female staff working on this book for you?
It was a goal from the start because we really wanted it to be the female gaze. It's a woman's story, and you can see it like starting in mainstream comics recently. Like I was just reading Black Widow or Wonder Woman. Like you see these aside from Letterer, you see these female teams, and I think you do get a different product, and there is different language. And someone was looking at our first, like the double page spread that opens the book, and May is laying on her back in the water, and she was like, oh, a woman drew this, like she has actual legs.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, because it's a very powerful opening scene, to be honest with you. To have that calm amidst the chaos. Comics, to me, one of the hardest things is to do a first issue. It is to kind of introduce everything. What was your decision making behind those first 5 pages? I was always told the first 5 pages, you got to hook them in 5 pages, and that's the hardest. That is like the hardest thing to do. That's like having like I don't know, the opening line of a novel be, set the stage you want to keep reading. How did you approach that opening?
They do say that. And then with screenplays, right? It's the first 10 pages.
Yep.
So I had written a screenplay about this world. I've actually written 2. So I had a lot of the basic concept of what I was going to do in this first arc. And it was really important for me to ground May in the natural world, because that's something that goes on throughout the story. And you want to have action, right? In the first 5 pages. So it was like, okay, well, let's start here. And Elise is really talented at nature. Like that's one of her things. The female form and nature are 2 of her strongest things. And those are 2 of the most important things here. So we just really leaned into it. Like, I think you have to know what you're good at and what your team's good at and use that as much as possible. So we did. And then I think the explosion's really beautiful. And then, we get right into it. And Elise said right from the start, like our first phone call, she said, I just love this script because something is always happening, and she said, oftentimes first time writers, it's just kind of like so decompressed. Yeah.
I definitely, it is definitely a different art form to writing screenplays. There's no question about it. And I've gone back and forth, and it's a lot of people think it's, what is it? Writing a movie as a book, and writing a book as a movie. And it's not, it's something completely different. Talk to me about, this is your first Kickstarter now. This is a different experience altogether to making comics. It's like throwing, it's like throwing in a master's course in business on top of, you got to also be creative and you got to market your book. Talk to us about the experience of the Kickstarter and how much stress it is.
I think much like creating a comic, it's a steep learning curve. And luckily Jessica and I both have producer skills. Like, I have produced a feature and she's produced TV shows and features. And so we have thought a lot about money.
Yep.
So it's not something that's uncomfortable to us, I think. And we know art is commerce, unfortunately. So, we just tried to learn, just like we did with the comic. We looked at lots of campaigns. We talked to people who we know who've crowdfunded. We asked them, what do we need to know? What are the top 5 things you want us to know? What do you wish you'd done differently? And it's like the same things over and over again, right? Like with anything, if you ask enough people, you have enough data, you start to get sort of the same, like, you got to have a big first day, you got to have higher tiers. If you can get other audiences involved, like if you can, like, we partner with Laura Vandervoort and Anjali Bhamani. They both, and Laura was Supergirl on Smallville and Anjali is Symmetra on Overwatch. And so they brought people into the campaign. Like, you need to maximize your contacts and your resources, and you need to not be embarrassed to, like, I have text messaged and DM'd more people than ever. And I just took it as an opportunity to reconnect and say, hey, here's what I've been up to, and if you get a chance to check it out, please do. And, I've reconnected with people who didn't back it, and that's great. I'm still thrilled to talk to them. It's not like they have to back it for it to be a positive interaction. Like, I'm happy to talk to people and reconnect with different communities I've been a part of. So you just have to, there's no shame in a Kickstarter, right? You gotta
there's not. And I remember I did my first Kickstarter in 2014, and I had first heard about the platform in like 2012. And I remember my first reaction was like, well, I don't want to ask my friends and family for money. Like, I don't, but what it's become is a distribution channel, right? It's just another place that people now can go and discover new, projects. And the thing that always shell shocked me was people really want to get behind this, they want to support you, and they also, if they like the work, they really want to support it. Like, they want to be in on that ground level. So it's funny when you mentioned, like, there's no shame. It's like, no, actually it's the complete opposite. People are like, oh, this is great. Like, I feel like I'm doing, like, they feel like they're participating. Right.
Yes. And it's not, I've independently funded the feature we made, a long time ago, 15 years ago. And that was a much bigger buy-in, right? Yeah. I couldn't ask people to buy in at $10 because you can't manage that kind of buy-in when you're doing it yourself. but I mean, people can just give $5 if they want. Like the threshold to entry is quite low. I mean, honestly, I think the most difficult part for some people is signing up for Kickstarter. So once they get past that, so I think that takes a lot of it out of it. Like you can do whatever you want. There's no pressure. And especially as you start like unlocking stretch goals, people are getting a lot for a $15 comic plus their shipping. They're getting stickers and a magnet and, a book plate.
They love those tchotchkes. They love the.
I know. I mean, you feel like, oh, I'm getting something for free, which is like such an intoxicating feeling. Yeah. I mean, everyone loves that feeling, right? It's like how you convince yourself to buy something on sale that you probably don't really need at all.
The irony too is that people think like they see Kickstarter rewards and they see like your funding goal was like 7,000 and you guys are up near 20. It doesn't mean you're pocketing that extra 13. I know. Everyone's like, wow, you're loaded. Oh, this is great. You made 13 grand off a comic. And it's like, no, I still owe $500 like somehow. I don't know how that happened, but my collaborator on a Kickstarter I did last year is like, I mapped everything out and I still lost $700 in this comic. And I don't, like we were funded like 150 or it was like 200% over what we'd asked for. And we still somehow didn't make any money. So it's definitely just more art than commerce on Kickstarter. Last question, what do you do with this next? Besides finishing the series, kickstarting the rest of the series, kickstarting the rest of the book, where do you see this going? Are you going to bring this to a major publisher? Are you going to bring this to a feature film, a TV show? What's in the works for Reburn?
We are just, speaking of getting advice from people, we have been advised and we agree with the advice, to just hold on to the IP and continue doing what we're doing. And so that's our plan. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. We're talking about doing another book in this world. And I think there is that temptation, like since we're talking about the headache or the joy that is Kickstarter, there is that temptation like, oh, let's get a publisher. And so we don't need to deal with all this. But at the same time, I think we're really enjoying the power of being able to make our own creative decisions. And the only people we're running them by are Jessica and I. It's like, okay, what do you think about doing this? And we've known each other a long time and we have similar sensibilities. And we've both been in positions where, we've been steamrolled. So I think that it's a lot of work, but I think the payoff is quite substantial as well. So we're just going to keep going.
Well, congratulations. I know you guys are successfully funded on the first one and doing really, really well with the book. The book is great, as I mentioned. Tell folks where they can find it and where they can find you online.
You can find it at Kickstarter, Reburn Comic, and I have a website, AlysonShelton.com, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at by Alyson Shelton, and my name is spelled Alyson, just to keep you.
I noticed that as I followed many false Alysons recently. No, I'm only kidding. But I did notice that. It was very good. Alyson, thank you so much for joining us. That is our show for the night. Next week we're almost through with Wandavision. We're going to keep talking about some Wandavision. What a terrific, amazing show. You're clapping. See, we didn't even get your take on that.
Oh, yeah, I love it. Yeah. And now our son has started watching it. And I'm like, it's okay. The first 2 episodes are boring.
They were.
He's 12. Fun. He doesn't watch Nick at Night. Like he has a preference for these things. He's like, oh, it's color. It's going to get interesting. I'm like, spoken like a 12-year-old.
We will dive deep into WandaVision, and we will welcome Jordan Elizabeth Gelber, creator of Content and Consequences, a new podcast launching on Rogue Matter Podcasts in March. We'll see you guys next week.
Rogue Wave.